Salt, not sugar. We're going to practice. Understand there were some food trucks at the end, but no foolishness. Just a nice little reward at the end, and that's that. So, Sean Payton, Jeff, man of his word. We're a football team. We're not football practice. None of these shenanigans.
No, as he says, you got to callus. He's always talking about the callus. Got to build callus. So
I like it.
I never thought for 1 second he was going to cut a day off of minicamp.
Fine by me.
Well, but let me ask this: you build a callus, now you got 6 weeks to use some Dove softener, and your hands are going to get uncalloused again. So, hey, walk us through this period, because they used to always say that this was a period where GMs and execs always held their breath, because when the trouble falls and comes, it seems like it's in this window.
Scotty, it's always been the hand-wringing part of the calendar for coaches, especially with this current collection of CBAs. This period is now much longer than it used to be back in the day. So they do worry about it. I do think teams are much better about offering, what players need during the off season. So they have a lot more attendance than they did at times for some teams back in the day. I mean, I've known people who've coached in Buffalo who used to talk about how they had to pay players out of their own pocket to get guys to come in there. But that's 20, 30 years ago. So, but this is the period. But they give them the lecture, and I think players understand that, this is not the time to mess up if you're really intent on, nobody with the Denver Broncos wants to go into Sean Payton's office in late July and explain what happened in the off season, or be on the phone with him to explain what happened in a situation they, shouldn't have been in, or that they found themselves in. So I don't think he has much real worry, but they do give him the send-off message of take care of your business and don't come back here with the intention of getting in shape. Be in shape when you get back here. And usually most guys come back with 2 weeks out before camp to get used to the altitude again, if they did not stay here, over this time.
All right. What did we learn this spring, Jeff?
We learned that if you're looking for the old school position battle in training camp, you're going to have a hard time finding one.
Right.
Most of what they're going to be competing for, are situational roles, carries and catches and touches and those types of things. But they don't really have a, quote unquote position battle to keep an eye on anywhere on the depth chart. That's probably an indication of where they think they're at too, that you don't see that.
Well, today Sean made a big deal about, hey, we had less OTAs. We're focused on conditioning. My most important job is to keep these guys healthy. And frankly, if we're bringing this big of a percentage of guys back, and it's so defined what's what, we are set up for we'll see, because, famous last words, but we are set up for one of the more boring Broncos training camps of all time, because they just want to get to the regular season here, Jeff, as far as I can tell.
I mean, boring in that you don't have, the ultimate thing to chart, which is a quarterback battle, right, which they've had plenty of times here. I would argue the best teams have boring training camps.
I would agree. I would
agree. That was my tape all week, and I said, to me, these mini camps are boring too, and that's a good thing, because you're not worrying about all this stuff. Talk about the wide receiver room. No Vele. He was kind of vague on how hurt he was, and he'll be ready for training camp. But what did you see, or could you see anything and expectations for what this wide receiver room will look like?
Well, I mean, Scotty, I think Vele's thing's an upper leg quad type thing, but again, that's not like ultimately verified, oh my God type thing. But no one has told me they expect any issues coming to training camp with him. But overall, I think we saw an awful lot of Mims, Sutton, with the starters, Bryant heavily in the mix already as a rookie. But, obviously Vele hasn't been there for the mini camp, but Sutton and Mims getting a lot of the work with the starters, and I think we should just be looking toward that. And plenty of size. Sean Payton's got what he's wanted from the personnel department, which is give him a bunch of receivers at 6'2", 6'3", 205, 210 pounds. He wants that kind of physicality on the outside.
And yet Franklin's shown that he is a fast guy. Did he have a little bit better mini camp this year than he did as a rookie?
Well, Scotty, last year I think he really struggled, as a lot of guys do in college, where if you don't play in the SEC, you likely haven't been pressed more than once or twice in a game. So you run free, and they get used to it, and they get used to having 2 yards on a guy when they catch a ball. He really struggled with that last year, especially along the line of scrimmage. And he's a lot more comfortable with the hand fighting and getting himself free. And I think that's key for him, because it's hard to use that speed and to make those plays if you let them sort of get you off your timing at the line of scrimmage. So if he wins more of those battles, he'll have more big plays down the field.
What other takeaways from today in particular, Jeff, and maybe some conversations you had with the coordinators yesterday? What did things amp up here today?
Dmac today was very situational. So a lot of Bo Nix and the starters on offense in the 11-on-11 periods.
Okay.
And I think that's where, it was more like, what does today's NFL look like? A lot of third down. Everybody thinks, you're living in third down and red zone, and that's been the last 2 days of this mini camp. So I think they'd really like to get Nix more efficient in the red zone and get Nix more efficient with a bigger variety of throws. So a lot of stuff outside the numbers the last 3 days, a lot of stuff in the red zone. You can tell it's a priority.
2 things to help you. That is a tight end that's going to be effective, and they can make sure your eyes are going to stay on it, and a little bit of a running game also. If you can't run it at all in the red zone, I mean, all the pressure's on the quarterback.
Yeah, Scotty, and it's always the caveat with Sean is that he always says that got to run better inside the 15, inside the 20, and then they get in games and they don't really call those plays. So I think a lot of it is on him too. But a lot of the work we saw in the OTAs and the mini camp was fairly structured in the third down, play action, passing game, that type of thing. You're not going to see much 9-on-7 old school run game work until camp starts.